Hey all, Times here, back playing some more Planet Zoo. So, episode 3 of the Seal Habitat, the one-off build that's become a mini episode build. But yeah, we're starting in the backstage areas now. If you haven't seen episode 1 and 2, then I would suggest going back, jumping back and watching those. I'll probably put a little link up in the top corner there, but the sort of mini playlist for this will be in the description as well. So we started this building in the last episode, but we didn't really do a lot. We kind of put some tiles in. This is a little backstage area for the seals. So according to the AZA guidelines, which is the kind of the general standard of guidelines and rules that I think it's the American Zoo Authority or something like that. But it's a kind of a useful place to look for getting your head around what the kind of rules and guidelines habitats should have. So in those guidelines, they say that pinnipeds or seals and those sorts of animals should have kind of several different separation areas in their backstage of their habitat. So I actually had to look this up because we were talking about this on stream and I wasn't sure whether seals would be kept in an area overnight that had water in it. They will, apparently they do, and they are kind of occasionally will just kind of sleep in water. So a lot of zoos and these guidelines sort of to refer to that as a requirement for them. So what we're creating here is actually a kind of a separation area. It's actually kind of like a birthing pen. So we've got this kind of little shallow concrete pool with a kind of curved edges, and we're putting a kind of little gate on it here from the main area. It's all a bit confusing at the moment because none of this building is kind of roofed or even completed in terms of walls at this stage, but it's actually kind of easier. I find it's easier to build buildings without the roofs on, or do the internals of buildings without the roofs on, because you'll get a better light and you won't kind of glitch up onto the roof and stuff, and it's just easier to control the camera. So yeah, loads of details in this one as you'd expect as usual. That's kind of my thing, doing a little hose here and stuff. As usual, there will be at the end of the speed build, there'll be a little tour section. I can't remember if this is actually going to be, I think this is probably going to be a little bit shorter. We aren't going to finish this habitat by the end of this episode, but I'm kind of not obsessing about getting it finished. I'm just kind of trying to get it to a level of detail that I'm happy with. Little hose here. So this is supposed to look like it's just kind of being filled up. I did actually, well, I'll show you this in the tour, but I did end up replacing this water with glass, and you'll see why. It's actually kind of equally is visually kind of convincing, but it just gives you a little bit of extra freedom to change the terrain and stuff, and obviously you don't have then the restriction of the water blocking everything you do. So now we've kind of moved out of that room now. This is a gate into the main kind of overnight area. So as I said before, we have this kind of pool area, and this pool area is quite a kind of expensive and I guess kind of overdressed, if that's the right way of saying it, but over kind of done area for a backstage thing. But as I said in the last episode, the theory of this is that this is kind of could be doubled up as like an education area. I may well do some more kind of things to kind of imply that later on, but yeah, it was supposed to be the idea of it was the actual pool area is like an area they might bring school kids and stuff. So we've started on something here. There are lots of roof to do, but this it was kind of suggested that it might look cool that we have like a sunken gutter. This was suggested on one of the Twitch streams where I'm building a lot of this stuff. And initially I was like, oh god, and then I decided I'd do it, and it actually ends up being really cool. It was a lot of work though. Obviously in the speed build it's like no time at all, but yeah, you can see this kind of sunken gutter and then all the down pipes for it. The actual building itself, I kind of deliberately wanted to look fairly understated. It's a bit of a sort of 70s looking, I guess like almost like salmon pink colour with these panels. So yeah, bits of details. You'll see all the details in much more much closer up when we go in. Using one of these, I think this is Mr. Domez, but there will be a link to all the assets, anything I've used from the workshop, and then in my own stuff in the description. So this is a new room. We hadn't got this room before. This is actually kind of their bedding area, or where they will sleep. So we've created another pool. So this is the third pool, and this one is a little bit different. The idea of this one was it's supposed to look like it's almost like a plastic material. Obviously it doesn't look like that yet, but it's supposed to almost look like it's a kind of plastic. Yeah. So this is me this is me attempting to do that. I'm not 100% sure it comes out all right, but the ATA guidelines refer to seals often wanting to kind of sleep half submerged, or actually they will sleep. Sometimes in the wild they'll sleep actually kind of just bobbing in the water, which would be kind of funny to see. So yeah, we create this sort of big tank. I think it actually, by the end of it looks all right. It's quite high on the piece count. Looks kind of plastic. I used one of the sign pieces in there. Obviously a load of thin boards and stuff. So lighting now, obsessed slightly over all this kind of ducting and stuff to make these lights work, or to kind of make it convincing that these lights work. So you see the switches. I think all these little details just do, for me, they just kind of help complete it. Okay, right, so outside again. So yeah, as I said, I'm obsessing about these guidelines at the moment. I think it might be a thing that I'm going to do more on, but this is they also call for a kind of quarantine area. So any time where there is an animal that's said to have kind of potentially have illness, or it's been hurt or something, or for some reason it kind of needs to be separated. So this is what we're doing, but we're doing this on the outside. So create this little kind of rounded pen, and then we kind of sink it right down into the concrete, and you'll see in a bit that I actually put a little kind of fence and stuff around it. Yeah, so sunk this down, obviously did some terrain work, sunk it down, used the glass to get the curved pieces. If you don't know how to do that, there is a technique to get any piece of barrier curved is to make it glass first and then turn it into the material you want it. That will give you a nice curved shape for it. So here's the fence. Obviously that little isolation area is only an isolation area if it is separated. So a little custom fence that I'm creating here, some hinges and brackets and whatever being added just to kind of make it look convincing. And then I end up then opening it up for some reason. I decided it's going to be open. I think I end up changing that, was again in the speed build, but I wanted it to kind of look like that it could be a little gate there with some bars and things. This is will be on the workshop. Right, now we're back in the kind of pool area. So this is kind of away from the building. Again, all of this you'll see in more detail. Little ladder being added. So this is actually quite high, and one of the things that I think I talked about in previous episodes is the idea that these tanks would need to be drained sometimes, and they'd need to be cleaned, and the need to be able to get keepers down inside, or maintenance people down inside a drained tank. Some of the edges are quite steep. The ramp we see kind of off to the right there is actually quite steep. So here's a ladder down. You'll see the little piston there. Still haven't done anything with that piston. That's supposed to be driving the gate. I'm still kind of working out what I'm going to do. I think it's going to be fairly kind of simple and implied, but I just haven't kind of got around to it yet. As I said, it's not going to be finished habitat by the end of this. Right, now doing this little sliding gate. So there's going to be some separation areas. I'll talk more about this in the tour, but I want to have some bits inside the habitat that are kind of no-go areas for the seals. And the reason why I'm doing that is because you'll see those trees in the background. It's important to make sure that any kind of foliage or fauna. Flora is the right word. Flora and fauna. Flora inside the habitat is managed and kind of kept away from animals, because obviously they'll eat that sort of stuff, and they'll get kind of if it gets ingested and those sorts of things. And obviously that's not necessarily a something that you want. So in order to avoid there being no trees or no foliage in the habitat, I'm kind of making a real conscious effort to kind of separate it off. So yeah, a bit more kind of detail in here, doing this kind of little curb thing. I think this ends up being quite happy with this. The actual gate that I put in there is from a set that I created a while ago. I haven't used it yet, but it was for another project. But it was a kind of a pen set, which I think I'm going to use more in the future. But I may well upload that again to the workshop in the meantime. So that's jumped on a little bit. You'll see I've added another one of those fences there. There is that gate. We're just kind of separating, as I said, I'm separating off areas where I want foliage from making sure that the seals can't get to it. I guess probably technically that fence is not really robust enough for a seal to be able to stop a seal. It could obviously just kind of dunder its way through there, but I think that's kind of doing enough. I don't want to obsess over that too much. And obviously because this is all kind of non-guest facing areas, I'm quite happy for it all to look a bit unkept and sort of weedy and that sort of thing. Right, so we are almost at the end of the speed build. The last little thing here I'm doing is this is just some clutter and stuff. I'm adding a little this is supposed to be like a little ladder set. It's a little folded up ladder. It looks a bit weird, but once it's kind of folded over on its side and laying down, it won't look weird again on the workshop or in the collection. So I will leave you for the last kind of 20 seconds or something of the speed build, and as I said, as ever, we'll have the tour immediately after. Oh, well, hello there. So you're right on time. The tour is just about to leave. We're going to do, as usual, the VIP tour for one. So we're up at the education area that we added in the last episode. I was just hanging out up here looking to see the seals. They don't use this area as much as I'd like. This is the upper pool, as you know. There's the backstage entrance behind this. But yeah, so I might do some work to see if I can kind of encourage them into that area a bit more. And as you know from the speed build, this was mostly all backstage work tonight, so we shall move along lickety split back to kind of about here. So you'll also notice that I've brought in a bunch more trees and some fences in a bit of a Galway green kind of colour thing to kind of draw a bit of a line. So I've mentioned this before, but I haven't worked out exactly how, but I'm going to be turning this into a zoo. I may well just pick up this whole habitat at some point and drop it into another zoo, or a new zoo, or I'll build from this one. But as I said, it's not finished. There's probably maybe one at least episode left after this. As you'll see, a bunch of kind of incomplete bits coming into view. I kind of don't mind. I know a lot of people don't do this. A lot of other content creators don't show their kind of incomplete bits. I don't really mind. I don't actually mind doing that because I quite like the fact that you see the contrast. And sometimes it's just useful to get a bearing. And also the way I work is a bit scattergun, so bits that are not complete will always be kind of ended up being visible. So this is just to get your bearings. This is the back of the show. This is the back of the arena. There's the canopy of the arena. There's the dude hanging out waiting to do the talk. And this is where we previously had the habitat barrier. So I'm bringing you this way because I need to kind of explain some changes that we've made and talk through some things that are going to be coming in the next episode. So in the previous episode, we had this little retaining wall added and these little steps. I added these because I had the habitat gate here. The keepers would come in over here and walk up and over the bridge over there. We'll get that way in a second. What I was finding, unfortunately, for whatever reason, I don't really understand why, but the animals in the habitat get boxed all the time. I've noticed this since I started building, actually. I think it's something to do with I don't know if it's something just to do with just the kind of the traversable areas that I've got But occasionally they'll just be kind of swimming along and they'll glitch out and they'll come back and be boxed back here. So what I was finding was that because this path is quite narrow, or this step's quite narrow, the adults were getting boxed and stuck, and actually that area is too small for them to get unboxed. So we were getting them kind of stuck down there, unfortunately. So in order to avoid them, the problem I had then was the natural place for the habitat barrier was probably further down the waterway. So the water is here, the channel that they swim along, we'll see in a second, is here. But what I needed to do was make sure that the keepers could come in here and still cross the bridge. Obviously, if I moved the barrier down that way, we'd never see the keepers walk across the bridge. They'd have no reason to do it. Okay, I just took a little cut there so we could get a keeper actually into the habitat. So this is probably easier to explain. So as you can see, this guy's come through the gate and is walking straight towards us. And he is going to walk across the bridge. We'll unpause it in a second. The reason why this little purple thing is there, and this is all just a test, and this is going to have to change a little bit, but the solution to having the keeper be able to come into the habitat and still traverse the bridge whilst not having the seals do the same, because the seals actually can't cross this bridge, so they just kind of ended up getting stuck here, was this extra entrance way. So there is going to be we're going to have to do some sort of creative solution for this, but some sort of tunnel or way through for the seals, so that when the seals get boxed, they turn right. So the quickest route is actually turning right, but because of the height of the keeper, he can't duck underneath that barrier. So he, in fact, comes towards us and will cross the bridge. Now, we unfortunately can't cross the bridge, as we saw this in Teducam. We can't cross the bridge, so we'll have to go round. But yeah, so that's kind of an interesting little challenge. I quite like, I've talked about this before, but I quite like the things that come up that are like little problems. Where are you going, champ? The things that come up that are little problems that you have to kind of find creative solutions for. Why he's walked all the way around there to do that, I have no idea. Obviously he won't, as I said, he won't be able to do that at some point in the future. We'll go inside in a minute, but we'll check out the little, first of all, we'll check out this little kind of isolation area. As I said, this is like a little quarantine dealie. So the gate is closed now. And we have a patient being isolated in here. I think he has a rare case of seal quaver, where he's taken on this can happen. This can happen. A seal. It's got the trembles as well. So he's like trembling. Oh, bless him. He's got a rare case of seal quaveritis, where he takes on the form of a quaver. And he's obviously a little bit cold or something. So yeah, we've got the little pool thing for him here. Kind of super simple. They don't need a lot of space. The guidelines say in a quarantine area they can have a smaller amount of space. So in theory, he's just kind of separated from the rest of them. Maybe we need some sort of crane or something, because now actually just looking at it, I'm thinking that I wouldn't even be able to get that seal through that gate anyway. Maybe I would. Maybe a keeper will be able to do that. So yeah, a bunch of just little clutter and details and things. As you see, there's my guttering, the much pain guttering. The gang are all coming up the slope from the pool. Yeah, because that Wally's fed them over there. They're all going to make their way around there. We'll just have a quick look at this little bit from the other side. As I said in the speed build, kind of separating off the trees and stuff. So yeah, that's the kind of thing that's like, obviously. Oh, I just noticed we've got some flying trees up there. Brilliant. This is obviously an old tree. In order to sort of make sure that it's still okay to stay there, this kind of thing makes sense to me, and it's a nice thing as a backdrop to have some trees and stuff. Obviously, from the guest area, you want to have trees visible still, and not have to have them miles away. And so it's to sort of make it feel like it's blended in. So we've got these kind of separation areas where the animals aren't, but we can get trees and foliage and stuff in there. So here's my little ladder down. Was better to see from the other side. And you'll see that the guys are quite happily swimming underneath that bridge. They tend to do, they either dive down and just swim all the way under, or they do what that one just did and swim on the surface. It seems to change quite a lot. The game seems to update their path then quite often. You'll notice this is blocked here. This is blocked because there is already some progress for episode 4 through that way, which I'm not ready to share yet. So yeah, bits of clutter. I always think those sort of bits of clutter and details and lights and stuff all make a difference. We'll have a look at it in the night towards the end of the speed build. Right, so let's do a left turn under the gate into the backstage area. So we talked about this a bit in the last episode, but obviously this is, as I said, it's kind of fairly well kind of done up backstage area. Obviously this is quite a high budget area for a zoo to do, but the theory was that it is all potentially a former kind of education area that maybe they'd bring kids in, or tours and stuff back here. There has been some changes performance wise. I'm really not seeing any issues. As I said, I think the font piece that I've used there is actually quite well optimized. It's obviously a really low poly piece because it's very thin, but you do see some kind of banding and stuff in over there as it kind of struggles to render all that in. I did actually replace all the floor because we had all this tiled below, but it seemed like it was sort of unnecessary. Right, I have to stick nice and close to the wall here because in Tejicam I'll glitch down. But we'll make our way round. Yeah, I don't know, this whole thing about me trying to make this kind of an education area, I'm really not 100% sure how I'm going to do that, but I think I'll find a way to kind of imply that it was that. As I said, things that I've used that are workshop items, I will include in a collection. So these little fire prevention things and extinguishers. In fact, this little gate, the HVAC set that I've used up there, is all stuff from the workshop. Thank you to those peeps. And then here's our little kind of birthing area. So super simple back here. Really kept it pretty stark. As I said, this is not somewhere that you would tend to see as a guest or even as a kind of a VIP guest. So it's really kind of simple. The rounded pool, the hose, some detail, little bits of details. You'll notice I kind of made it great pains of kind of tank this kind of trim all around the edge. It's supposed to look like it's kind of tanked out, and this is obviously somewhere that could get wet, would naturally get wet. And then yeah, I mentioned this in speed build as well, the bit of glass, super simple. I did that because I have the pool on the other side. Well, I have two quite large volumes of water here, and what I was finding was that just doing anything with those, I was having a lot of times when water was just be considered to be obstructed and stuff. So the simplest solution was to actually put a piece of glass down, and I would say that actually works pretty well. Once you put the sort of splash effects and those sorts of things in there, I'd say that was pretty convincing. This one is actually a separate habitat. This is another habitat gate through that wall, so if I wanted to, I could put animals in here as well. So we'll go back through the gate and do a right, just to give you the context of where everything kind of lies now. The building is actually now complete, so all of the rooms and stuff are now in this building. So we have this again little kind of pull down barrier door, little channel that the seals can come up, and then if we go in here, so as I said, this is the area that they'll hang out at night. So at night the barrier would be pulled down, this little gate would be shut, that shuts them off from the waterway and from moving across the tiled area, and this is where they'd spend their night. So Yeah, I think this came out all right. I will upload this to the workshop. I think it does sort of convincingly looks a bit like a fiberglass tank to me. Pretty simple pieces actually, just the thin timber pieces and one of the sign bits underneath, just to give it a little bit of a different texture to the concrete. I think that came out all right. Obviously, I said it's got this kind of little shelf here, very shallow water shelf, so seals would actually quite often sleep just kind of semi-submerged in water like that. But then they've obviously got the option to be in deeper water and then the option to not be in water at all. So that goes back out of the habitat. As I said, I won't show you through that way because it's all kind of work in progress. But again, this is closing off bits of trees and stuff from being accessible to the animals. Loads of things need to be done here. So this is pretty much the final area. I'm not 100% sure what I'm doing with this yet, but this leads us back round to the other side of the upper pool that we saw right at the beginning. As you see our little white sluggy creatures floating about. Last thing to show, again, loads of stuff needs tidying up. The little edges and stuff all need to be fixed up. Is this little kind of circuit breaker thing, kind of big transformer thing. So yeah, we'll do a little fly around. We'll go back over here. We'll pop up into the sky and we'll fly over there. Let's just get us into night mode. And we'll fly over so you can see it all in the dark. I tend to like, as I said, I think I talked about this before, but I take great pleasure in lighting the habitats and even sort of the backstage areas. I just really enjoy it, making sure they kind of look cool at night. So there's the kind of entrance bit. Gate just closed ominously, and we've kind of lit this a little bit. If we scoot over here, yeah, I think it just gives it kind of nice little ambience if you just spend a little bit of time making sure you've got kind of lighting, interesting lighting. Maybe a little bit dark in there, but never mind. And then obviously this is the last bit that's got lit. Get lit. So I think that is going to be it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. As I said, this has probably got maybe one more episode. If you want to follow along live in the build process, not everything I'm doing here is on Twitch, but there is quite often Twitch streams where I make progress. And yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe, share and all that good stuff. It really helps me out. I know I keep saying that, but it does really help out. And yeah, catch you guys on the next one. Take it easy.